Hey Ben, I had my first UFO encounter on the 5th of August 2012 when I was living and working in Western Australia in a small town called Dunsborough. I was working in a day spa there and I had the day off, so I decided to go over to the following town about an hour away called Bunbury to do an exercise class. Now, I was a little bit early to go to this exercise class, so I thought I'd have a mooch around the town, and I stumbled across a shop called the Blue Buddha. It's a hippie shop, it's a crystal hippie shop. And as I was walking around in the shop, the lady on the till just said, "Would you like to have a reading today?" So I had some time to kill, so I thought, why not? What have I got to lose? So I had a reading with George, the psychic, and he did this tarot spread for me. Which I'm not normally into tarot, I have to say, but I was feeling a bit lost at the time. I had not long broken up with my boyfriend, and I was in a bit of, no man's land on what I was doing, so far away from home. So I had this lovely reading with George, and one of the things that he said in the reading was, you're going to have a spiritual awakening. I didn't really think too much of it at the time. I just kind of left there feeling quite good. Went to my exercise class, finished my exercise class, and I started to drive home from Bunbury to Dunsborough down the Bustle Highway. And as I was driving down the highway, I started thinking about what George had said in my lovely reading that I had. And one of the things he said was, you're going to have a spiritual awakening. And I thought, yes, I am. This is going to be great. I'm going to have a spiritual awakening. And I had this bit of a mantra in my head, and I was feeling so good and so pumped from my exercise class. And I was just feeling so good, and I was like really believing, yeah, life's amazing, I'm living the dream. And I'm going along a little bit more, and the sun's setting, and all of a sudden I can see this, like, what I thought was a bright star up in the sky, and I thought, oh wow, that's such a beautiful star. Like, carry on driving a bit more. As I'm driving along, this star is getting brighter and a little bit lower, and I thought, oh wow, maybe it's a planet. I was thinking, oh, I'll have to look up what planets we can see at the moment. And as I'm driving along a little bit more, this what I thought was now a planet was getting even bigger and even lower. And I thought, holy shit, that's an aeroplane. And I thought, wow, there's this is back in 2012. There's no flight paths really over Western Australia. I'd lived there for about 5 years, and I'd hardly ever seen a plane fly over. So I thought, wow, this is really incredible. And as I'm going along the freeway a bit more, it's getting lower, and I thought, oh my God, this plane's going to crash. Like, it's like I'm driving along a runway and this plane's going to come and land. So I'm driving along, and I thought, holy shit, as it's getting closer, I realised that it wasn't an aeroplane or your normal aeroplane. It was this triangular shaped craft that I can only describe, that the top half looked like... it was totally metal. Everything was metal. The top half looked like Flight of the Navigator. I don't know if you've seen that film, Flight of the Navigator, where he's got the grooves. It's just pure metal and the grooves all around. And underneath was totally flat, which had some lights, in circular lights that sat, like disc light, that sat flush to the surface. There was a large reddish orange circular disc light in the middle of this triangle. And then either side, there was two smaller circular discs that were white, and also one at the front as well. And I remember on the left hand side of it, it had like a blue light, a bit like you get a blinker light on an aeroplane. Had like a blue light, but it wasn't blinking. I remember, and by the time this had happened, it was quite close to me on the left-hand side of the car, and I could see, and there was no noise at all. It was like stealth mode, absolutely silent, no noise at all. As I looked up to the left-hand side, I could see there was a rectangular plaque on the side of it, and on this plaque seemed to be like, not hieroglyphics, or like symbols on the side. There were about 7 symbols. I remember 2 of them. The first one kind of looked a lot like an Om. And a couple over, there was another one that had like a circle and perhaps like an arrow coming off of it. A bit like you get that male and female sign, like with either the cross or the arrow. I can't remember which one it was. And so, I forgot to say, before this actually happened, as it was getting lower towards my car, it turned my sat nav off. My sat nav totally switched off, and I reached for my phone, and my phone totally went blank as well. So I had no phone signal, no sat nav, no nothing. And obviously by this point I was absolutely shitting myself. So as this craft had gone over and I'd seen what I'd seen, I still managed to drive along a little bit more, and my sat nav turned back on, and so did my phone turn back on. I quickly reached for my phone. I called my ex-boyfriend, who I just was in absolute like frightened hysterics, screaming down the phone to him about what I'd just seen. He was like, calmed me down. He was really cool. He said, I believe you. He said, let's just get you home. So I still had 45 minutes until was going to get to my house. As I'm driving along and I'm on the phone to him, I looked over to the right hand side, which overlooks the ocean, and I could see 5 to 7 like blue lights in a zigzag formation over the ocean. I stayed on the phone to my ex-partner all the way back to Dunsborough, which was about 45 minutes. And I don't think I've ever gotten out my car and in my house as quick as what I did back then. But I quickly raced into the house. I remember calling my mum and my dad in just hysterics. And my mum said to me, call George, let him know what you've seen. So I called George and he said, right, write it all down. Don't forget anything. And just, I believe you. Draw it, So I did all of this. And when I was sat in my house, I could feel like such a sense of like electricity. I didn't know whether it was because I'd probably gone into shock or had some PTSD from it. And I didn't know what I was feeling. It just felt, it's such an eerie, odd feeling that I felt in my house. So I remember thinking, I need to get outside for some air. So I remember going outside my front door. I remember looking up to the sky and I could see like a light in the sky. It looked like a star, but it was moving from left to right. And I thought, oh shit, like whatever that is, it's like still here. So I shit myself again and ran back into my house. I rang some friends that I worked with at the spa and I'd explained what had happened. I think I was really lucky to have like the support that I did because, before this happened, if someone had said to me, they'd seen a UFO, I'd probably think like, what the fuck are you smoking? Like, you're on drugs or you've lost the plot, you're bonkers, And back in 2012, we didn't really have much on the internet for groups, support groups or anything like your channel, There was nothing really. So I remember not being able to sleep that night. I had to leave the light on all night. I remember when I eventually got to sleep, which was the early hours of the morning, I remember having the most bizarre dream. I dreamt that I was stood in front of a row of like people, but they had like cloaks on, and I could only see 2 of the faces with these cloaks. There was one; they both looked human. One would look like was a man, and he had short brown hair and like a stubbly beard, but had really large eyes, like bigger than like normal human eyes. And the guy that was stood next to him was like really pale in colour, like white, with long blonde hair and elfish ears, which I know sounds really weird. And I'm not saying that's what was on that craft. I've no idea. This is just what I dreamt, and this could just be my mind trying to comprehend like what the experience that I'd just been through and what had just happened. The week following this, I researched flight paths. I think I researched everything about aircraft, and there's no airports where I was living. There was nothing, and I couldn't find any explanation. I actually thought I'd gone bonkers. I thought, wow, this first week after it, I thought perhaps I'm losing the plot. I was hallucinating, and I wasn't on drugs. I actually wish I was on drugs because then I would have an explanation for what I'd seen. I think I was really lucky with the job that I was in, and have the work colleagues I did, because they really took me under their wing. And without them, I think, after such a traumatic, weird experience, you could definitely lose the plot. And since then, it's just left me really dumbfounded. I've, still to this day, I have no idea what it was I saw. I can only put it down to being a UFO. UFO. UFO.